Tom O'Neill.
Here.
Thank you. First item is to approve the CRA minutes of the meeting of November 12th, 2014. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? I'm sorry. I forgot announcements. You got announcements, Mr. O'Neill?
No, I have none.
Mr. Public?
Nothing either.
Okay. Comments from the public? Okay, I'll bring it back from comments from the board members. All right, the first agenda item is the Bayou Business Association request for monthly sponsorship. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, you have a letter of request in your packet from the Bayou Business Association, specifically requesting a grant from the city in the amount of $1,000 per month, beginning on April 1 through March 2016. As I've indicated in my memo, we did not include any allocation for any grant activity like this in the budget. And in any event, I would advise you that should you consider a grant between the city and this BBA, that we should have time to negotiate a very specific agreement that sets forth the obligations of both parties. What does the city receive in return for the grant is one of the things that could be addressed and should be addressed in any type of agreement. There should be performance indicators and an independent audit for the public funding that would be received by the nonprofit agency. And I would tell you and advise you that I would prefer and recommend to you that we have any discussion on specific funding amounts later on in the year when we know what we're going to be dealing with as a city and as a CRA. We do not yet know if indeed we're going to have any changes in our assessed valuation. And as you know, we had a challenging year last year to balance the budget. And so I would advise you that perhaps this discussion, if you desire for it to proceed, be deferred until August during the budget work sessions of this year.
Okay. Do we have a spokesperson from the Bayou Business Association?
Good evening, Council. Walter Lowe's, 4909 Waterside, representing the Bayou Business Association. Just to sort of clarify, obviously you have the letter on behalf of our request to help out with the efforts of the Bayou Business Association. But during the actual September CRA meeting, we did actually pass certain allocations towards both street landscaping, also towards the dredge, along with marquee signage was all part of that presentation that we did back in the September CRA meeting. So, and that was approved, that was passed by a 3-2 vote. And so what we're trying to do is actually structure that already approved allocation in this year's budget in a more structured format along with the council's direction. And what we're proposing to do with that allocation in very direct terms is to direct it towards that work that we spoke about earlier, which is improvement in the street lights, also look at other improvement issues along with the city, like the fishing pier and waterfront park and those sort of issues. But we like to work directly with the city in identifying what those improvement issues are within the district that we feel bring the largest community value back to us in a constructive manner. So, and like I said, I think that this would be a very wise investment from the city's behalf, because we're planning to obviously contribute directly to those same efforts. We have a number of signature events that we're doing upcoming. One is Pasco Paddlepalooza, which is in April. Another event to follow that, which is a charity fishing tournament that we're also holding in May, that we're hoping to raise funds, additional funds to help out with these efforts. So at the very least, we feel confident that we can match dollar for dollar what the city would be able to allocate towards these efforts. So I would hope that the council would consider that in the request that you see in front of you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, discussion from council.
The association is, come on back up, please, if you would, since it's a request. The request is from a yet-to-be corporation at this point.
We actually have incorporated
As
501c6.
a 501c6.
Correct. Business association.
Okay. For-profit, not-for-profit, I'm not familiar with the
It's
six.
a nonprofit status.
It's a nonprofit status. It's not a tax-deductible status.
Correct.
Correct, okay. What I'm looking at here basically is a stipend. It's essentially a seed money, however you want to look at it, because you're not really giving us anything in particular that the money's going to, other than to help further goals that are beneficial to both the city and to the association, correct?
We're proposing to work hand in hand with the city to come up with a very distinct time frame, like
Right.
streetlights at, whatever time frame is conducive and realistic
Right.
with this, and then other designated projects, but that we want this to be a very constructive relationship where we can work directly with city staff and the council to come up with a project list and do things within the district that we both agree on that would improve our community.
Yeah,
So-
I'm concerned that without an actual project list at hand, I know there's an awful lot of, like Main Street USA and Newport Richie and stuff like that, where specific line items, specific expenses are shared between the association and the city, not forgetting that in any city, ours not being exempt, no matter what event you have, costs us money anyway. We contribute to every event just because it always means more police and more city presence, more work for the city workers. But again, I'm not against the idea. I think it's a little early in the game, like Tom just said, in the budgeting process. I would like to see a little more nailing down of just, what it is our $1,000 a month is going for.
Well, also in the letter, which I'm hoping that everyone's had a chance to read, it actually specifies that one of the action items is to come up with this joint planning group to do that very thing, Councilman Colombo, is to identify, to actually pick a date and be very constructive with that and saying, all right, this group is going to come together on this particular date, and it's a joint planning group to come up with that very list. And we just want, we want movement forward is what we're really looking for. And so if that pushes the funding date back by a month or something along those lines to give us time to bring together this group, this joint group, then great. But it's just, movement in that direction so we can actually get concrete things that we're hoping to achieve this fiscal year. Because like I said, we did approve some action items at the September CRA meeting that are yet to be even put on the docket yet. And that's our concern, is that, like I said, we're not sure if we're any closer to getting streetlights in. There's a lot of conversation around that, but we like to get streetlights in. So we need some sort of mechanism to be able to do that, and hopefully this would bring us to that point and things along those lines.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a comment, but you want to go, Terry? I'm just going to say Faith. Well, in suggesting, obviously, a grant agreement be negotiated between the city CRA and the BBA, as noted, I'm not going to say we're that early in the game. There certainly is focus on a lot that's going on in that particular region. When we talk about Nix Park, we talk about Waterfront Park. I would ask the question, and there is reference in your letter as well to the summit, the CRA Basics and Beyond Summit, that some of your members be interested in attending. As far as our CRA dollars, I think you have probably been to enough meetings that you see the bulk of the spending. We've got over $700,000 in spending that is directed to the staff presently in the budget. I know there's a notation here of $150,000 that you noted in the 2014-2015, and I would come back to Tom on that. Obviously, with getting to this new budget season's not far from us, especially when we look at, as we've all noted, possible funds into the October period, perhaps, in a restructuring effort. I think you see the balance between. Let's go back a little bit. The birthday party celebration in Waterfront Park that's happened a few years. The fireworks that have been something, obviously, in Port Richey that has been help funded. So things of sorts. Matter of fact, I think we even had to take care of some lighting in Waterfront Park and took care of some needs there as well. So, as far as a commitment, I think when we look back at some of the history, we've certainly been a partner, and I think we will be a partner. Look, we extend the sidewalk over in a particular region. It looks beautiful over there. I know that these are small steps, and we'd like to see some big steps, come forward. But, at this point, when there's an indication that a grant agreement be negotiated, you would obviously be in favor of that, right? Just would like it to occur earlier than later.
We would be. Just so, like I said, it's gets us further down that road. Because, like I said, during the September CRA meeting, we agreed, it passed, to do these certain action items. Like they're in this fiscal year. That's what was passed, to do the street landscaping, to do the street lights, to do the sidewalks, so thank you. It looks great.
Well,
I think
signage.
it's a great benefit for our community, and many people have acknowledged that. But there's work yet to be done. And so what we're actually bringing forth to you is a way to jointly do this scope of work. So, it's not like we're coming to ask for, obviously, a handout or anything like that. We're actively, it looks like we'll raise significant dollars through Pasco Paddlepalooza and the fishing tournament that we're willing to put to work. But we want to know that this, everyone has skin in the game, sort of thing.
Right.
You
Well,
know?
currently, I'll ask Aaron real quick. Currently, our paint fix-up, what is the status of the paint fix-up? Had we extended the 100, I know we have 100,000 in funds and also 5,000 in the irrigation funds. Was that designated in the last budget as well?
We have the $5,000 remaining, but the rest of the paint-up fix-up, the residential grant has already been allocated to all the residents.
Okay. All right, so we didn't have anything. The previous year, I think the last that we had of it was 100,000, of which, would you guesstimate how much was actually spent in that fund? I know it was not used as a total. Matter of fact, I would imagine very little was used, but,
I don't know off the top of my head.
okay. I'm just
It
throwing
actually
that
was
out.
quite a bit, but
Was it?
I'll
Okay.
send that information out with the
Okay.
specific amounts to all members of council.
I know we've heard lighting, signage, and so forth. I just think if we're looking at, the request of $1,000 per month averages at $12,000 a year, I would just say that these agreements be entered into sooner than later. Let's have those discussions
Because
occur.
in reality, the 12,000 is a small portion of the actual 150 that's
Right.
referenced in the letter that once again was approved by the CRA. There was yet to be pinpointed, but that was the approval already. So we're coming back to you and saying, we're just asking to do this in a structured format and provide, and we want to work directly with the city
Right.
on this and bring resources to bear to help do the work. But 12,000 out of the 150 that we've already agreed to I think it's a reasonable request, quite honestly.
Well, and I guess my point is we have been a partner in the past in offering, paint fix-up. I mean, we started that at 150,000. We made changes along the way. There's a lot of folks that benefited from those programs. So obviously there's been, a history of this, and I'm sure that hopefully we can bring both sides together to look at some of these restructuring efforts. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other discussion from members of council?
Tom mentioned a target. If you were looking at, some type of grant agreement negotiation, what was a timeline that? We've heard some of the needs when we talk about lighting. We talk about perhaps other signage, et cetera.
Well, those would be city projects.
Okay.
And I just, recapping what I was saying earlier, is we just need to be careful. The $150,000 that was budgeted used the last of your reserves. Mm-hmm. And so we need to be careful because we've got next year to face. And right now we're in a position where historically over the last 5 to 6 years, we've used reserves in order to balance the budget. Mm-hmm. And that can't happen anymore. So we need to be careful with what we authorize. And hopefully we all will benefit from increases in assessed valuation, and we'll have more ability to have discretionary spending. The money was budgeted, but it wasn't specifically allocated. It was there using the last of your reserves to allow you some discretion.
Right. We had some of those same discussions with dredging and the $250,000 that was set aside. But just in looking back, I think also with the current formula and CRA dollars that come in, we have seen a steady decrease over a pretty good period of time. Certainly not what it was when we started. So, anyway.
When we dealt with the budget and allocation to the waterfront district at the last year, obviously we were committed and concerned about making city contribution to the improvement in the waterfront district. I think it's very important that we continue the cooperative relationship between the city and that business district because it benefits the entire city as a place to go, as an attractive focus for the city. And I can understand your frustration at not seeing lighting, not seeing some decorative planting that we have talked about, signage. We haven't made any forward progress on that. I think it's important that we address those areas that we have been committed to. But again, we've got this huge problem that we're in a state of flux on a lot of issues going forward of what's going to happen to the waterfront park, the waterfront district, whether there's going to be a redesign of the traffic flow and all sorts of things, so that it becomes, the planning becomes a little more problematic in terms of going forward. But certainly signage would be something that I think we could do. That our commitment, and again, this with the Restore Act funds coming forward to be used for dredging, which was one of our commitments and concerns in that area of the waterway. That redefines what we're going to do as well. So I think the city ought to move forward with perhaps, looking at lighting, the decorative planting, the signage. But we have a responsibility as a city government to make decisions and to look at the best interest of the entire community, residents as well as members of the business community. And I've been one of the supporters and committed to fostering and furthering the waterfront district, but I am reluctant to give up control for the city's determination of what we do when we do it. And that coupled with the budgetary restraints, again, I think there are things that we need to do, we should have been moving more quickly on, that we need to move forward on. But at this point, I don't think the time is ripe, given the budgetary situation, to go into this cooperative agreement.
Well, as you indicated, some of those steps that we could take now might obviously exist, but as we consider the sum of the total, when we talk about Nix Park and we talk about Waterfront Park, this is a very historical time for the city and all that's occurring, and as that's developed, and that's been over years, things will probably, I would imagine, come together pretty quick at some point. But as you mentioned, what can be done now? I mean, we've done a sidewalk over there. We've addressed some parking over there. If we feel now that we can address some trees, et cetera, plants, et cetera, and lighting, maybe that's something to look at. I know that we talked about lighting in our. We talked about some additional revenue sources, which I do want to see on an agenda coming up and see what figures we have. We'd talked about that. I guess it's no secret that I was the one that wanted to raise taxes, but anyway. So have what we have.
No secret.
As far as the lighting's concerned, I agree with that because of the fact that it is a safety hazard. It's dark
Yes.
over there, and to keep the people that are going over there safe, and lighting's a really great idea to just be able to see your way through things over there.
And also very expensive
I know.
to do on a commercial level.
Well, the first step is to see the cost and
Yeah.
see what we can do
Yeah,
and how
right.
it fits into the
Right.
bigger overall plan.
Yeah.
But, there
Unfortunately,
are
we
some
can't just run down Home
there are
Depot
some
and pick up
things
a
that-
bunch of Malibus and
I'm good at those too.
put them in the ground.
There are some ideas that we've thrown out. Well, we have some cost figures on those. Is that something you think that could, do we have staff can look into that?
Well, with
If we
regard
look
to
ahead to
lighting, there's a trend to replace most of your high-pressure sodium lights with LED lights. And what may be the ideal thing to move forward with at this time is to change out the fixtures, have Duke Energy change out the fixtures to LED fixtures in the waterfront overlay district, and at least along Old Post Road and including the waterfront park. I'll get a cost to do that and bring it back to you.
Okay.
Well, part of my vision was that we wanted some decorative lighting, not just change out. to
Like lower level
LED.
lighting type of,
I mean, if you're going to make it, you're trying to enhance the beauty of the area, then you don't do it by most of the ugly streetlights we see.
We certainly can do that. The decorative lighting, the fiberglass pole fixtures that you see around are all doable, but it is pretty expensive.
Yeah,
And,
well, we don't have to do it all at once.
Right.
We can.
We can get a
select out
price for that, too.
Some per light basis and make some determinations, and maybe sections we want to move on, or what is our priority within our budgetary limits that we're facing now, knowing that this budget this year has been extremely tight.
I
Is
will
there
get,
some,
excuse me.
I'm sorry. Is there some samples we would have, when you talk about lighting, if you're talking about changing anything, and that's a slow process? I mean, that's something between the,
Yes.
obviously, the business
Yes.
district and.
In fact, if you want to see LED ornamental lighting in effect, you can drive down Main Street. It's been changed out. And what we could do is I could get two alternatives. One is to replace the existing fixtures down there with LED lighting. Another one is to replace them with ornamental lighting, if for your consideration.
Yeah,
I'll ask for that from Duke Energy.
thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, the lighting's good. We do need to move ahead. Problem is, for me, myself, I don't know what I have to spend. And I think we need to have a complete accounting of the CRA fund so we know where we're at. With the prognosis of what next year's gonna look like. If we're gonna move ahead at all, we've gotta know where we're at with our money. I can't imagine myself going in a store to anticipate buying anything if I don't know how much money I have in my pocket. I requested some documents from the city along CRA lines, but I got year-end budgets totals. That's not gonna help me. I think if we could get an accounting of the expenditures for the last, say, 2 or 3 years, which is what I asked for. And I know the Black Mountain would give us this, and we can look through there and see as our spending has been done, we've got to start planning how we're spending this CRA. We've got about, what, 5 years to go on it?
Yeah.
We've got to get our act together. These people are looking for help. They have put a lot of time and invested a lot of their own capital in this. Be nice to help them where we could, but we can't help them at all until we know where we're at. So I would like a full kind of forensic accounting of that CRA fund over the last 3 years, and just a printout. I know I've gotten it in the past from Pam, from the Black Mountain, showing the expenditures and the incomes, and we can look at that and try to figure out maybe what we might have to spend, what we don't have to spend. But without that, we're just talking in the wind.
We had our book that was provided us when we went through that budget process. That included those numbers, didn't it?
Yes.
Because that goes back 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so, I mean, if you still have that book, I know I have mine.
I got the book.
I'm pretty sure
The
those,
book
some of
shows
that might be in.
totals for, departments and how much we
Right.
spent on staff, but it doesn't go down to the nitty-gritty of the checks coming in, the checks going out, what we spend on engineering, what we spend on expenditures. That's what we need to look at. That's what we need to get into.
Yeah,
We've
and I
gotta start
think as
looking at
well is as you mentioned, what's coming in, because what's coming in is less. And, as we said before, and I did up here, I don't want to bring it back, but, we said the majority of that, over $700,000, it has to be directed towards our staff, because that's the kind of work's being done as well. We've asked to weed ourselves off of that, but, this council refuses to increase those taxes and keep that artificially low. I don't agree with that, but I would like to see those numbers as well, Terry. Maybe, would that be the next CRA, or would that be the next, because, CRA, I don't know when is our next CRA? Do we have a date?
All right, I'm going to open it to the public for any comments on this issue. Ms. Spalding?
No, go ahead.
Ms. Tonkin?
No, go ahead. No, please.
Come on up.
Eric Soinen, Gildog. The biggest thing, I'm hoping that we get an update on the dredge and everything else, but when we're talking about street lighting and, the things that we're planning on doing, and like Walter says, that has already been approved, I would just hope we just, do it right, I mean, like what the mayor's saying, if we do it in sections or whatever, let's just do it right. Because when we're talking about replacing fixtures, with LED lights, I don't know that there's any fixtures down there, and I see what Newport Richey just did, and I think we can do this kind of stuff, but I think we just need to do it right. If we do it incrementally and a piece at a time, I think the population will get behind it, and, just let's not Band-Aid it. Thank you.
Hi, Kristen Tonkin, representing the BBA and Sunset Landing Marina, 5115 Sunset Boulevard. Thank you for listening to what the BBA has to say and our requests. I want to make something very clear to you all, please. There are places all around doing public-private partnerships with companies like ours, the people that are in our association. They want to help the cities that they're in, and they want reciprocation. That's what partnerships are based on, is reciprocation. We feel that we are the leaders of the community because we're the ones that are out there working. All right, we're the ones that are visible to the people that are not from here, that want to come into our city and possibly reside here. We are the ones that are in the forefront of all of this, representing the city. It is very, very important for you to learn how to use the CRA. That's number one, all right? That's what we have to do first. And then once we learn how to do it and use it the right way, then we can start making these changes. But for real, that's what you have to do. The very first thing is learn how to use the CRA because it's not used properly. I'm telling you that it's actually not legal to use the community redevelopment funds to pay payroll, but no one has told on you. It's true. So we're all in this together. We love this city. We want to see it be visible and prosperous. We want to have a better lifestyle for every resident that lives here, for every business that is in this community. We want to lift up, and we want to have a better life. So we all have to start working together and stop all this fuss and just start saying yes, and that's how it's going to get done. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I was raised here.
Kristen, you need to address me.
I'm
please.
very proud of being from this county, and I know how this community needs to be, and I'm very serious. The children that we put into schools here, that we actually invest in educating, they're gonna go off to college and they're not gonna come back. People that live here, they have a downtrodden attitude. They don't like the way things look. It's embarrassing for people, and I'm over it. I want it to be better for people.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Ms. Spalding.
You need my address? Sandra Spalding, 82070 Post Road. First of all, I think the city has been trying with the business section. I know the residents have. A grant of $1,000 a month to the businesses? I don't see why. We're talking about a partnership. Where is the partnership here? I don't know. I know they have their funds, they run this and that. We hear the music, the residents. We tolerate the parking. We do all this. I'm okay with that to a point. Number one, I love the city, and I'm glad I live in Port Richey. Number two, we make mistakes, yeah. But are we going to continue? We have a plan. We were okayed on the grant, one step at a time. Children crawl before they walk. So let's start crawling. Make your plan, do certain things at a time, but the businesses have to work with us. All right? You know, have a committee to oversee, but have your committee with both residents and business people. You have to blend together here. CRA money, wherever you people want to put it, it's up to you. I'm sure you're going to put it in the right place when we get it next year, but right now we have a grant coming, do we not? To fix downtown? Where do we start? Start at the beginning.
We have a grant, we've got a a plan already for
Right.
that, and
That's what I'm trying to say. We have it all in place, we just have to start from the beginning,
Well-
which is the plans that
Hang
you
on.
made.
okay.
You know, I don't understand, I'm sorry.
I'm
Bill.
sorry, the only thing I wanted to add, Ms. Spalding, and I'm sorry to interrupt, is we don't have grant money in hand, and we're not likely to for a very long time.
I know that.
So
So what can
for
we
anybody
do?
else listening out there, it's not like we're sitting on this $500,000 pot of gold and we're just not spending it, because that's not the
That's what
case.
I'm trying to say to you.
Right.
We have a plan, we have everything worked out. We don't have the money behind us yet to do it. Well, if you don't have the money, you can't spend it, number one. Number two, take your plan, decide what's the foundation on your plan, and you concentrate on that first. And never mind this association, these people want that, these people want. Hello, get a committee up of both residents and business people. Decide where you want to start, and it's usually from a foundation, and you work it from there. But to give a grant of $1,000 a month, I don't think so. And we don't even have it to give. That $1,000 a month could be used for lighting or something else. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to? Ms. Gray, would you please kill that irritating noise?
I'll get you a hammer.
Phyllis Gray, 8141 Aquila, Sand Pebble. There are over 300 residents of Sand Pebble, of which I represent as president of the Master Board. Sand Pebble pays approximately, probably by now, more than 2/3 of the real estate taxes of the city. 2/3. I'm listening to some of the people from this alliance that the city, they request that the city pays them $1,000 a month to be a partner. What would you like to pay Sand Pebble for the over 2/3 real estate taxes that you collect? Maybe Sand Pebble should form an alliance. Because we work for the city, we do it willingly, we give of our time, we have elected officials. That's how we work for the city. We partner for the city. Somebody said that the city has a downtrodden attitude, quote unquote. We don't have a downtrodden attitude. We pay our taxes willingly every year, over 2/3 what you collect. You have committees and we work on them. We have boards and we serve on them. We don't ask for anything back from the city. And I think somebody in the early part of the meeting, maybe it was the regular council meeting, I think it was with the new sergeants. We don't ask the city for anything. We serve you. That's what we do at Sand Pebble. And maybe that's what these businesses ought to understand. You allow parking all over the place. You turn your back to violations. And I'd like to remind you that at one time, I don't know whether they started up again, but on the east side of the city, we had the Crab Shack. We all but put them out of business because there was one parking violation after another until finally the people didn't come here anymore. Yet down on the waterfront, this precious waterfront that is filled with gin mills, parking in front of Miss Baldy's house all the way up the park. And nobody seems to ticket them. Nothing's happening over there. Council, may I have just a
Yes,
couple
go
of
ahead.
seconds, please? If you're going to talk about this at a future date, I'd like to know when that future date is, because if you have over 300 people from Sand Pebble, I can get a whole bunch of people and have them lined up as to why you should not pay $1,000 to people who want to make things right. Funny, they can't make things right unless you give them $1,000. And we at Sand Pebble said and say, we're helping you make things right now. We don't want anything in return. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Mr. Priest?
Jim Priest, 5100 Sunset Boulevard. I think to a great point, what everybody spoke to tonight is true in there. I think the waterfront waterfront over there needs help. What Miss Gray said is correct, what Miss Baldy is correct, okay? It's a, how should we say, a difficult balancing act at times. Fortunately or unfortunately, though, I was here the last time we went through this, okay? And the folks that were in the waterfront district over there actually got together with the city and sat down. Ms. Cole-Keelis was with us in there, and we put a plan together, and that plan actually became a nationally award-winning plan, working with Wade Trim in there to the development of the waterfront overlay district. The issue became, okay, of how to fund it in here. And so you can continue to have, great ideas and great contemplation and to a certain extent consternation, okay, in there. And until you come up with an idea of how to fund these things, okay, it just isn't going to happen here. I think to go along with Ms. Spalding, if you want to have a committee or an entity that is put together, it needs to be a multi-headed facility, okay, with the public, okay, being involved both from the commercial and a residential side and the city in here. I don't think you can get a fair, how should we say, balance in there without it in there, because you're going to get this difference that you see right now tonight, okay? Some folks speaking or articulating, okay, for their particular point in here, and others that are not. And unless you have one voice that can come together, or saying this group can sit down and everybody can agree to, okay, look, this may not work at this time for us, but let's at least, try certain amounts of funding, certain amounts of rebuilding, okay, in here, whether the lighting, whatever the case may be. But you do need to bring everybody to the table, though, okay, and because it's to put this on you all right, to sit back and say, I'm going to back the business, I'm going to back the residents, I'm going to back just what the city has the budget to do in there, it's not a proper way to try to solve this. It wasn't back then, it wouldn't be tomorrow. You need a group to get together, on it and be able to, have an open discussion and see what the how should we say, the bigger issues that may be, and come up to some solutions in there. And then once you have these solutions or directions you want, then start figuring out your budget for it. What we have in our coffers, it may be limited, but there may be other opportunities out there. There's some good minds, okay, not only on that side of the dais, but on this side of the dais. There's people out there that are willing to work in here. Obviously, as they have spoke to us, okay, that they're willing to go ahead and to be getting involved with it in here. And you can see a lot of the headway that has been made. But to fund an entity, okay, that is singular in voice, okay, it to me is a mistake in here. That entity, whatever it may be, okay, needs to be made up of a group and a body in here, and let that body come up to council and articulate what they have come up with
Thank you. Eric, you had your chance.
Really?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Very
mean,
briefly.
just honestly, personally, you know, I'm all, and I think all of us are just all about beautifying the community. And $1,000, really? I mean, personally, I don't care at all, but $1,000 is, my water bill is almost $1,000. It's nothing. I mean, it's a gesture, you know? But forget the $1,000. It's all about just us working forward and trying to beautify this community. You know, that's it. I mean, I don't care about the rest of it. It's just getting it done.
Thank you, and that's been our commitment, you know, from this part of the CRA to, Walter, you had your chance. I'm not giving you a second one. Colleen.
Hi guys, Colleen Soitinen, representing BBA and Gildog. I don't normally get up on this stage, so you guys know that. I would like to, first and foremost, for Ms. Spalding and Ms. Gray, the BBA has invited all the residents of the Bayou to attend these meetings, and we have a few select, but that's what it's all about. It's not about just businesses being involved in the community. It's about businesses interacting with the residents to try to come together. So the $1,000, as Walter has pointed out, has already been allocated through the CRA funds, through the $150,000. But yet, we're still having this conversation. And with all due respect, when Gildog, for one, is called a gin mill, we have had many, many fundraisers that raise money for children with cancer, that raise money, $10,000. And we are a family-friendly atmosphere, and I take serious issue with that.
Okay.
So we are doing great things for people of this community. We deserve to have the businesses of this community, deserve to have some effort with the residents and the businesses to come together to make it great. You know, it's just, I've been here all my life as well, just as Kristen said. So I respectfully ask you guys to consider helping the BBA and coming to our meetings, you know, as council members and as residents, and learning what we are really all about. No.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to council. Any further comments?
Well, you know, I think, and you know, I welcome everybody getting up and discussing. I think there's a fine balance. I think when we labeled it the 1,000, it was probably maybe the wrong thing to do because, as Mr. Sojin indicated, it's not really about the money. I think, as I indicated in my previous talk, you know, we've tried to find a balance in doing some things there via the sidewalk, via, you know, helping with parking, et cetera. You know, both sides aren't isolated, and I apologize I've not been able to come to the meetings, but, you know, I do agree that in getting everybody together now, I live where Phyllis lives. I live in Sand Pebble, but I don't think that, look, we have a lot of Sand Pebble people that come over to Gildogs, I'll be honest with you. But you know, I think it's not about isolating both sides at this point. And I was kind of getting a bad vibe of this initially, and I don't think we want to get that. We've got good people out here, and we've got good people up here, and we love our community as well. And the other is just in what Terry indicated with looking at the balance of these particular funds. Look, we're not just hiding money. You know, I think a lot of folks understand, your business folks, you understand, you know, what might have initially been there. You know, when we talk about CRA, there's a very delicate balance. Look, we do spend a lot on staff, but a lot of that, I want to remind everybody that this particular plan of the CRA, when it was developed with Ellen, who was our manager at the time, went through one of the leading attorneys for the state of Florida in helping put that plan together. So I don't think we need to throw out anything illegal there, but You know, this was a fine developed plan. As I've said a long time ago, we're trying to weed ourselves off as much as that as we can. That's why I look to raise a little bit of the taxes. But nonetheless, look, we've got to keep all folks together. Let's not isolate each other's and stop this verbiage going forward. We all have a common goal, and I think we're going to get there. And look at what's ahead of us now. You know, we had Commissioner Mariano here at our last meeting. You know, we've got a lot of positive signs coming to our particular region, and I think everybody's happy about that. I'm happy about that. So thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight and sharing your opinion.
All right, I'd like to see us move in the direction of positive things on the lighting and what we can do, because that has been our commitment, and within budgetary constraints, I think we ought to do that. And cooperation is going to be the key to the success of the entire city.
Well, we have some CRA information coming forward. I know Terry indicated, and we'll be able to look at that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work with Aaron on that.
All right.
Two quick things before I know the hour's late, and I'm not going to ask for a report or anything else. The Florida's Community Trust, we've had some emails from them. They were asking for interaction from the city on the plans that we have for Waterfront Park.
You're off topic.
Pardon?
I think you're off topic, Terry. We still got another agenda item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's agenda item number 2, which is the signage issue. And this was part of our desire to address this from a prior meeting of City Council. Mr. O'Neill.
Are you to the signage?
Yes.
Okay, just to clarify, do you want another CRA meeting on this item here, or would you like to just continue this discussion until I deliver some quotations to you for lighting?
We'd like to. I'd like to see some quotes and some direction in
Okay.
terms of the budgetary constraints that we've got.
I will do that.
Okay. Signage.
Okay, this matter was discussed at the last meeting, and it's on the agenda for your review and discussion tonight on how you wish to proceed.
Okay. Are you referencing the kind of signature signage that we provided uniformly throughout the city as kind of our brand versus the proposal of Mr. Melton to provide a concrete sign? Is that part of what the discussion is focused on?
Yes, and it would be as per your direction and your preferences.
Okay.
Well, I know when we've considered signs in the past, some of the beautiful signs that we see, that was part of the CAC that we had back when. You know, we had presentations, et cetera, and the end product was, I think, some very beautiful signage. But I'm just throwing that out there. I don't want to try to overcomplicate that, but you know, in looking at what went into creating those signs, that was a lot of work and a lot of volunteers and a lot of time to get us to that
Well,
point.
maybe we can kind of piggyback the two, because, you know, one of the things that we talked about into the waterfront district is to make the signage distinctive as a direction. And the signs that we use throughout the city are smaller in size. So if you're gonna have something for the waterfront district, I think it's gonna have to be a little larger in size. And it may be a combination of a permanent kind of concrete foundation and the arches and so on that we have used to kind of tie that together. I mean, it's just a thought. But I certainly would like to see some continuity in the signage to carry through. But yes, we need some distinguishing features for the waterfront district, because you're directing it to one district.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, we had people come out and actually help us design that. We actually had, and we have some kind of 3 or 4 or 5 different companies
I
come
thought
out.
that was actually USF that did that.
Yeah, there
Oh,
was
it
a, that was
was,
a
that's right.
project,
Did the
yeah.
design, yeah, that was their design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'll get to you.
So I don't know if it's worth going back to them again and saying, you know, can you come up with something that, you know, plays off of our existing signage, but is more dedicated toward directing people to the waterfront district? Because, yeah, that's the problem. We got a waterfront district back there, and people either know it's there or they don't, you know, and it's just, there's nothing to tell you that it's there or if they don't know it.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, you know, Tom, do you think that's worth pursuing? 'Cause,
I could try that. Another alternative is to have us develop some renderings, several of them, for you to take a look at.
Right.
That would incorporate some of the features of the existing signage, branding, if you will, and incorporating other features to identify the waterfront area. And then the other thing that ultimately you would need to discuss is location,
Right.
where you'd like to see it. We may or may not need to acquire some property or an easement to place a sign.
Little triangular easement would be nice.
Try it out.
Okay, any other comments from council? Open it to the public.
Signage.
I just the contest is one thing, but I think another thing is, you know, everybody here is busy and everybody has their lives and everything, and maybe as a BBA thing, you know, we could put some renderings together and get some prices together and things like that and present it. So then when it comes to council, it's just a decision, you know? So maybe we can do some of the legwork on that and try to find some clever, creative signage. Because personally, I don't want just the same kind of sign everybody else has. You know, I think we should have something unique. But is that a reasonable thought?
Input is always welcomed.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Richard Belton, 5342 Blue Point. As I had said previously, I'm donating that sign to the city, and if I need to donate a graphic designer to give you a ton of conceptual drawings, I am willing to do that. Just help us help you. Tell us what you think you want. I will produce it for you free of charge. I don't know how much better the offer gets than that.
Well, I think you heard our comments, which is like, we'd like to have some integration with our brand, but distinctive for the waterfront district. That's our image.
We like free. Free is good.
We're on it.
All right, anybody else?
I'm sorry, how many do you want? How many conceptual drawings would you like? How many do you want to
The
choose from?
number isn't significant, you know, the design is.
Okay. So
It's not a
conceptually,
it's not a
you
matter
wanted to
of number.
represent the city's brand image that we've got right now, and then take it from there.
Yeah.
Would you all prefer the same colors we're using, the red and green?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine with me. I
Right.
mean, I'd like something that would be a signature piece.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Do we have red and green on our signs? I thought our signs were like beigey,
They are copper
copper.
arch.
Well, you got a whole creative team there, so I'll be looking forward to it.
Do you guys have the drawings that you can email to me from other signs that are already made?
Okay, anything else from the public? All right, seeing nothing, then I think we've got a direction on the signage, and then what we need to think very hard about are locations. Where do we want to put this? And what do we need to get, you know, do we have an easement we can use? Do we need to acquire for, you know, additional easement? What do we need?
Well, they
Where
may
we
have
gonna
some
put it?
input as well in that particular area, as you've seen the other signs. So, you know, location's key. Your businesses, you know, location's key. So, you know, we're talking about directing to the waterfront. Thank you.
All right.
What I might suggest, just very briefly, is directing me to work with the BBA to get conceptual drawings and also identify a number of locations for your consideration.
What was that, Tom? With whom?
The BBA,
Oh, okay.
the
Okay.
business.
That's good.
And identify a number of locations where we could install a sign.
Okay. All righty. That brings us to the end of the meeting, and we're going to stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Ain't that interesting?
Yeah, yeah.